to read you a Japanese essay called In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanizaki. Okay, I'm going to read you a few pages from it. Where did I leave off last time? I actually don't remember. Here we go. Good, I'm just going to start reading somewhere. Here we go, starting from page 12. There's a famous restaurant in Kyoto, the Waranijaya, one of the attractions of which was until recently the dining rooms were lit by candlelight rather than electricity. But when I went there this spring after a long absence, the candles had been replaced by electric lamps in the style of old lanterns. I asked when this had happened, and was told that the change had taken place last year. Several of their customers had complained that candlelight was too dim, and so they had been left no choice. But if I preferred the old way, they should be happy to bring me a candle stand. Since that was what I had come for, I asked them to do so, and I realized then that only in dim half-light is the true beauty of Japanese lacquerware revealed. The rooms at the Waranjaya are about 9 feet square, the size of a comfortable little tea room, and the alcove pillars and ceilings glow with a faint smoky luster, dark even in the light of the lamp. But in the still dimmer light of this candle stand, as I gazed at the trays and bowls standing in the shadows cast by that flickering point of flame, I discovered in the gloss of this lacquerware a depth and richness like that of a still, dark pond, a beauty I had not before seen. It had not been mere chance, I realized, that our ancestors, having discovered lacquer, had conceived such a fondness for objects finished in it. An Indian friend once told me that in his country ceramic tableware is still looked down upon, and that lacquerware is in far wider use. We, however, use ceramics for practically everything but trays and soup bowls. Lacquerware, except in the tea ceremony and on formal occasions, is considered vulgar and inelegant. This, I suspect, is in part the fault of a much vaunted brilliance of modern electric lighting. Darkness is an indispensable element of the beauty of lacquerware. Nowadays, they make even a white lacquer, but the lacquerware of the past was finished in black, brown, or red colors, built up of countless layers of darkness, the inevitable product of the darkness in which life was lived. Sometimes a superb piece of black lacquerware, decorated perhaps with flecks of silver and gold, a box or a desk or a set of shelves, will seem to me unsettlingly garish and altogether vulgar. But render pitch black the void in which they stand, and light them not with the rays of the sun or electricity, but rather a single lantern or candle. Suddenly those garish objects turn somber, refined, dignified. Artisans of old, when they finished their works in lacquer and decorated them in sparkling patterns, must surely have had in mind dark rooms and sought to turn to good effect what feeble light there was. Their extravagant use of gold, too, I should imagine, came of understanding how it gleams forth from out of the darkness and reflects the lamplight. Lacquerware decorated in gold is not something to be seen in a brilliant light. To be taken in at a single glance, it should be left in the dark, a part here and a part there, picked up by a faint light. Its florid patterns recede into the darkness, conjuring in their stead an inexpressible aura of depth and mystery, of overtones but partly suggested. The sheen of the lacquer, set out in the night, reflects the wavering candlelight, and announcing the draughts that find their way from time to time into the quiet room, luring one into a state of reverie. If the lacquer is taken away, much of the spell disappears from the dream world, built by that strange light of candle and lamp. that wavering light beating the pulse of the night. Indeed, the thin, impalpable, faltering light picked up as though little rivers were running through the room, collecting little pools here and there, lacquers a pattern on the surface of the night itself. Ceramics are by no means inadequate as tableware, but they lack the shadows, the depth of lacquerware. Ceramics are heavy and cold to the touch. They clatter and clink, and being efficient conductors of heat are not the best containers for hot food. But lacquerware is light and soft to the touch, and gives off hardly a sound. I know few greater pleasures than holding a lacquer spoon bowl in my hands, feeling upon my palms the weight of the liquid and its mild warmth. The sensation is something like that of holding a plumb new baby. There are good reasons why lacquer soup bowls are still used, qualities which ceramic bowls simply do not possess. Remove the lid from a ceramic bowl, and there lies the soup, every nuance of its substance and color revealed. With lacquerware, there is a beauty in that moment between removing the lid and lifting the bowl to the mouth, when one gazes at the still, silent liquid in the dark depths of the bowl, its color hardly differing from that of the bowl itself. What lies within the darkness one cannot distinguish, but the palm senses the gentle movements of the liquid. Vapor rises from within, forming droplets on the rim, and the fragrance carried upon the vapor brings a delicate anticipation. What a world of difference there is between this moment and the moment when soup is served Western style, in a pale, shallow bowl. A moment of mystery, it might almost be called a moment of trance. Whenever I sit with a bowl of soup before me, listening to the murmur that penetrates like the far-off shrill of an insect, lost in contemplation of flavors to come, I feel as if I were being drawn into a trance. The experience must be something like that of a tea master who, at the sound of the kettle, is taken from himself as if upon the sigh of the wind in the legendary pines of Ono. It has been said of Japanese food that it is a cuisine to be looked at rather than eaten. I would go further and say that it is to be meditated upon, a kind of silent music evoked by the combination of lacquerware and the light of a candle flickering in the dark. Natsume Soseki, in Pillow of Grass, praises the color of the confection yokan, and is it not indeed a color to call forth meditation? The cloudy translucence like that of a jade, the faint dreamlike glow that suffuses it, as if it had drunk into its as if it had drunk into its very depths the light of the sun, the complexity and profundity of the color. Nothing of the sort is to be found in Western candies. How simple and insignificant cream-filled chocolates seem by comparison. And when yokan is served in a lacquer dish, within whose dark recesses its color is scarcely distinguishable, then it is most certainly an object for meditation. You take its cool, smooth substance into your mouth, and it is as if the very darkness of the room were melting on your tongue. Even undistinguished yokan can then take on a mysteriously intriguing flavor. In the cuisine of any country, efforts no doubt are made to have the food harmonize with the tableware and the walls, but with Japanese food, a brightly lighted room and shining tableware cut the appetite in half. The dark miso soup that we eat every morning is one dish from the dimly lit houses of the past. I was once invited to a tea ceremony where miso was served. When I saw the muddy, clay-like color, quiet in a black lacquer bowl beneath the faint light of a candle, this soup that I usually take without a second thought seemed somehow to acquire a real depth and to become infinitely more appetizing as well. Much the same may be said of soy sauce. In the Kyoto Osaka region, a particularly thick variety of soy is served with raw fish, pickles, and greens. And how rich in shadows is the viscous sheen of the liquid. How beautifully it blends with the darkness. White foods, too. White miso, bean curd, fish cake, the white meat of fish lose much of their beauty in a bright room. And above all else, there is rice. A glistening black lacquer rice cask set off in a dark corner is both beautiful to behold and a powerful stimulus to the appetite. Then the lid is briskly lifted, and this pure white, freshly boiled food, heaped in its black container, each and every grain gleaming like a pearl, sends forth billows of warm steam. Here is a sight no Japanese can fail to be moved by. Our cooking depends upon shadows and is inseparable from darkness. I possess no specialized knowledge of architecture, but I understand that in the Gothic cathedral of the West, the roof is thrust up and up so as to place its pinnacle as high in the heavens as possible, and that herein is thought to lie its special beauty. In the temples of Japan, on the other hand, a roof of heavy tiles is first laid out, and in the deep, spacious shadows created by the eaves, the rest of the structure is built. Nor is this true only of temples. In the palaces of the nobility and the houses of the common people, what first strikes the eye is the massive roof of tile or thatch, and the heavy darkness that hangs beneath the eaves. Even at midday, cavernous darkness spreads over all beneath the roof's edge, making entryway, doors, walls, and pillars all but invisible. The grand temples of Kyoto, Chionin, Onganji, and the farmhouses, the remote countryside are alike in this respect. Like most buildings of the past, their roofs give the impression of possessing far greater weight, height, and surface than all that stand beneath the eaves. In making for ourselves a place to live, we first spread a parasol to throw a shadow on the earth, and in the pale light of the shadow, we put together a house. There are, of course, roofs on Western houses too, but they are less to keep off the sun than to keep off the wind and the dew. Even from without, it is apparent that they are built to create as few shadows as possible, and to expose the interior to as much light as possible. If the roof of a Japanese house is a parasol, the roof of a Western house is no more than a cap, with as small a visor as possible, so as to allow the sunlight to penetrate directly beneath the eaves. There are no doubt at all sorts of reasons, climate, building materials, for the deep Japanese eaves. The fact that we did not use glass, concrete, and bricks, for instance, made a low roof necessary to keep off the driving wind and rain. A light room would no doubt have been more convenient for us, too, than a dark room. The quality that we call beauty, however, must always grow from the realities of life. And our ancestors, forced to live in dark rooms, presently came to discover beauty in shadows, ultimately to guide shadows toward beauty's end. And so it has come to be that the beauty of a Japanese room depends on a variation of shadows, heavy shadows against the light shadows. It has nothing else. And so it has come to be that the beauty of a Japanese house, And so it has come to be that the beauty of a Japanese room depends on a variation of shadows, heavy shadows against light shadows. It has nothing else. Westerners are amazed at the simplicity of Japanese rooms, perceiving in them no more than ashen walls bereft of ornament. Their reaction is understandable, but it betrays a failure to comprehend the mystery of shadows. Out beyond the sitting room, which the rays of the sun can at best but barely reach, we extend the eaves or build on a veranda, putting the sunlight at still greater a remove. The light from the garden steals in but dimly through paper paneled doors, and it is precisely this indirect light that makes for us the charm of a room. We do our walls in neutral colors so that the sad, fragile, dying rays can sink into absolute repose. The storehouse, kitchen, hallways, and such may have a glossy finish, but the walls of the sitting room will almost always be of clay textured with fine sand. A luster here would destroy the soft, fragile beauty of the feeble light. We delight in the mere sight of the delicate glow of fading rays clinging on the surface of a dusky wall, there to live out what little life remains to them. We never tire of this sight. For us, to this pale glow and these dim shadows far surpass any ornament. And so, we must, if we are not to disturb the glow, we finish the walls with sand in a single neutral color. The hue may differ from room to room, but the degree of difference will be ever so slight. Not so much a difference in color as in shade, a difference that will seem to exist only in the mood of the viewer. And from these delicate differences in the hue of the walls, the shadows in each room take on a tinge peculiarly their own. Of course, the Japanese room does have its picture alcove, and in it a hanging scroll and a flower arrangement. But the scroll and the flowers serve not as an ornament, but rather to give depth to the shadows. We value a scroll above all the way it blends with the wall of the alcove, and thus we consider the mounting quite as important as the calligraphy or the painting. Even the greatest masterpiece will lose its worth as a scroll if it fails to bend with the alcove. While a work of no particular distinction may blend beautifully with the room and set off to unexpected advantage both itself and its surroundings, wherein lies the power of an otherwise ordinary work to produce such an effect? Most often the paper, the ink, the fabric of the mounting will possess a certain look of antiquity, and this look of antiquity will strike just the right balance with the darkness of the alcove and room. We have all had the experience, on a visit to one of the great temples of Kyoto or Nara, of being shown a scroll, one of the temple's treasures, hanging in a large, deeply recessed alcove. So dark are these alcoves, even in bright daylight, that we can hardly discern the outlines of the work. All we can do is listen to the explanation of the guide, follow as best we can all the but invisible brushstrokes, and tell ourselves how magnificent a painting it must be. Yet the combination of that blurred old painting and the dark alcove is one of absolute harmony. The lack of clarity, far from disturbing us, seems rather to suit the painting perfectly. For the painting here is nothing more than another delicate surface on which the faint, frail light can play. It performs precisely the same function as the sand-textured wall. This is why we attach such importance to age and patina. A new painting, even one done in ink, monochrome, or subtle pastels, can quite destroy the shadows of an alcove, unless it is selected with the greatest care. 4 a.m., my friends. I'm finishing on page 20. Oh, we're over halfway through the essay. Hey, you look normal. Thanks, small sporter. Thanks, man. Gotta see some lacquer and candlelight. Straight up jorking it. Oh, thanks, Adam Rosenblum. Alright, so that has been your bedtime story for this evening, and I hope that you all have an excellent week. I hope you grab your life by the fucking balls and come back to enjoy reaping the rewards of your labor next week. Okay? I've been your host, Gokanaru, and I will speak to you in the near future. Okay, my friends? I think we're all a little bit tired now after that beautiful lullaby that Mr. Junichiro wrote for us many, many years ago. And so, I send you off into the dream world with a lot of love and respect and a bullet to your head. Bye bye.